suffice it to say, MGBs must have had this smell inside them since new. I have never been in an MGB that doesn't smell like this. And this one, the odour is strong in it. So what's the solution? I suppose, yeah, let's take the windscreen out. And while I'm at it, that dashboard has to go as well. So yeah, there's a bit of work to be done today, folks. How you doing, folks? I'm Ross Kelly and this is Endfloat. So yes, folks, that is correct. Today I am taking the windscreen out of the MG and I'm going to take the dashboard out as well. So that involves tackling some wiring. So the intention is, the windscreen is cracked anyway, okay, so I'm not going to worry too much about damaging it, although I don't want it to go into splinters, obviously. So we will try and take it out in one piece. But the main thing is that we get the chrome strips out in one piece because they're bloody expensive. So, you might ask, why am I taking the windscreen out? Well, the reason being is because the scuttle has rot that needs to be addressed. In around the windscreen there's some bubbles and blisters. As I said, the windscreen is cracked, so it needs to be replaced anyway as well. And yeah, I mean, if I'm going to do a proper job on the bodywork, the windscreen has to come out along with all the other glass in the car as well. So there's several reasons for it. The reason the dashboard has to come out is because I need to revive all of the clusters and instrumentation. I need to paint the dashboard itself. I need to address all the wiring and make sure that everything in there works, because so far there isn't a single switch in the dashboard that actually works. And I did actually buy a new headlight switch for it just to see if any of the wiring was intact in it. Incidentally, they did, if you look back at my previous videos. So yeah, now all the wiring is taken out for them. First thing we need to do is we need to take the chrome strips off around the windscreen. So really what we need to do is we need to just peel the rubber back. But to be honest with you, I'm just looking here. The rubber's just crumbling away as I go anyway. So I think I'll just get a Stanley knife and I'll just cut them out. You met one might Stanley. Now just, folks, just make sure that you always get an adult supervision when using the Stanley knife, okay? And basically we keep going in a similar fashion. All right, so that's all the chrome removed, and next thing to do is to remove the rubber beading that goes into the actual window rubber itself. Whether or not I need to remove that, I'm not entirely sure yet, but that basically, normally if you were removing the rubber to keep it intact, you would have to remove that. Do you ever get the feeling you're being watched? Easy peasy! Now, last thing is to cut the glass out. Yeah, I'm aware that that's like the second time I've tried to do a stupid English accent in my video. Anyway, to all my English viewers, I apologise in advance. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna cut the glass out now, and I'll show you basically what happens next. All right, I broke the tip off my blade, but the rubber is all cut out now. So literally it should be just a case of pushing the back of the windscreen and it should pop out. Beautiful, there we go. Now this is where I really don't want to find extensive amounts of rot. So we'll find out now. a little bit down there, but oh, look at the other side. A bit of dressing up there needed. Let's have a look. Okay, so there's a bit there, which I'll know what we're dealing with there when I grind it back. Down there, you know, I've seen much worse. We might get away without having to do anything in the anything drastic in there. Where it's white here, I had already ground back and I just sprayed it with a little bit of etch primer just to kind of keep the rust a little bit at bay. Along there's some scabbing along there, but nothing in the actual windscreen surround itself. Same there. Around the other side is where it starts to get a bit scary. Ah yeah. All right. Yeah, so that's not great really. That's going to need addressing. Look, that's what we're here for, isn't it? Same up there. There's a hole. An hole there. The local accent. All right. Yeah, and a bit of scabbing and blistering there. So the worst of it is in the passenger side lower corner, which is manageable. In fairness, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the grinder out of that and I'm going to have a look and see how that comes up. And yeah, as I said, the dashboard is going to come out next as well. So yeah, we're getting there. We are getting there. I mean, to be honest with you, the windscreen removal was a bit of a doddle, to tell you the truth. It came out very easily, but that's because I cut the rubber. If I didn't cut the rubber, then, you know, it would have been a bit more of a faff. But I suppose you just take your time and you work the rubber over the glass, and having two people doing it, one person kind of pushing on the inside of the glass and the other person kind of peeling the rubber out over it, is the best way for it. Now, what I will say is putting the glass in is always a pain in the face, but we'll be doing that at a much later stage. What I might do is, whoever does the body work for me, I might just get them to do that for me, because I can't be arsed, to tell you the truth. There's never less rust than you're expecting to find. There's always more. And unfortunately, this is no exception. Somebody's been here before with a tub of Isopon. Oh, and by the way, I know people have been saying to me to wear a mask when I'm grinding and stuff like that. I keep forgetting to bring one with me, to tell you the truth. And today is no exception. I'm not doing a huge amount of grinding or anything like that though today. For the most part, what I'll be doing next is I'll be removing the dashboard. But thank you for your concern. I really do appreciate it. And if you are doing this, make sure you wear a mask. Make sure you wear goggles. Well, there's a bit more rust than I was hoping, but kind of expected it, to tell you the truth. Unfortunately enough, there's no holes there, but the metal's definitely gone a little bit thin. Certainly going to need a skim of filler anyway, if nothing else. Around the wiper spindle, that's going to be an area of concern. Same with the other one. I haven't taken out the wiper spindles obviously yet, but the main kind of areas are either side of the screen. The problem is the repair sections for these are €526. So I can't justify that kind of money on this. I'm going to have to just repair this. The issue is the fact that it's a composite curve. It goes this way and it goes this way. So it makes it a very difficult piece to repair. And that's probably the reason why some of you just did it with filler instead of metal. So you can see there up the top of the windscreen, there is a hole where that blister was. And this side is looking very perforated altogether. I'm not delighted exactly with the condition of that. So that's obviously going to need some fairly extensive repair work. You know, it is disappointing when you see that somebody's been here before with a tub of Isopon. But anyway, let's just leave that on the back burner for the moment and set about trying to remove the dashboard. That's going to be fun in itself. I actually am looking forward to it. I think it'll be interesting. And it means I get to tackle some of the wiring as well. In my infinite wisdom, I only just did up the bolts lightly that were holding in the steering column. It's not connected to anything else anyway, so that's the first thing I'm going to remove. Get it out of my way. Yep. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so underneath the dashboard there are some multi-pin connectors for what's left of the wiring for the ignition switch, and for the two stock switches as well, so we shall remove them. when you're doing anything with wiring, just have a roll of masking tape and a marker and just write on everything as to what the connections are, because you know it's very easy to forget when it comes to reassembly as to where things go. Now obviously you're going to want to be tracing back with a wiring diagram, but this just makes things easier. It stops you having to second guess yourself. So IGN will be the ignition switch in this instance, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wrap that piece of tape around there. Takes the guesswork out of it. Take that off. Now you could label that as well, you know, but the likelihood is I'm going to be replacing that one way or another. I'll leave it over there for the moment and I'll label it after. I'll know what it is. So that's that, and then this is indicators, and this one is wipers, overdrive and wipers. Okay, so I've taken out the fuel gauge there, which was already loose anyway. I had taken it out previously to try and get at the wing bolts, and I've literally just labelled it fuel left and right, so left and right looking at the gauge. And you know what, the funny thing about it is I have every expectation I'm going to be looking back at this video that I'm doing myself to try and refer back onto it. But what you can do as you're going is you can also make a you can take photos on your phone, and that does help enormously. So we're going to take out the rev counter next, which doesn't work anyway, so we need to find out why. Things like that, I'm going to take it apart and try and find out why it's not working, and if I can fix it, well and good. For those of you that don't know, the gauges are held in with these kind of tabs on the side, on the back. You've two little grubs or thumb screw type things that you loosen off at the back, and there's this little plate that actually holds it in at the back. And if you once you take those off, the gauge just pops out and then you can pull the wires off. It's actually very simple. I don't know why people make it out to be such a big ordeal. It's really not. Like. So the dashboard is held in place by, if you reach up behind here, you'll feel that there's a nut with a large washer on it coming down, and there's the same over to the other side. Now we've also got two bolts here, 7/16 headed bolts. I've already removed the center console previously. It's fairly simple to remove, it's just a couple of screws, but obviously you have to remove the gear shift as well. But I suppose you don't, but I did in this instance because I removed the gearbox. But we'll get this out anyway, then we'll have a look and see what else we're dealing with. I'm kind of figuring it out as I go along as well. See, that's loosened everything up there now. So we can take these vents out too. Okay, and yeah, in the middle there's another one of those nuts with the large washer on as well. So we'll take that off. My hope here is that I can kind of pull the dashboard out a bit to try and get in at the back of some of the stuff. Okay. Yes. Brilliant. Okay, that gives us great access now. So, first of all, I'm going to take I'm going to start by taking a few of the switches out and disconnecting a few more things, and then we can start figuring out how to take the dash top off as well. I have to take that off too. We can kind of address any little nasty surprises in there. My intention as well is I want to get the entire wiring harness out of this, because that goes off into the engine bay and it's going to need to be addressed. It's all covered in dust and dirt and everything like that, and if you expect that to work, you're only fooling yourself. There's the speedometer cable off there now straight away, so that's handy. That is indicator left, I suppose. Yeah, it is. Okay, so yeah, so I'm just going to basically keep going, disconnecting things and labeling them. And when I have that all done, I'll bring it back and we'll assess the situation then. Okay, so aside from the obvious kind of disconnecting of wires and stuff like that, and the three nuts with the large washers along the top and the two bolts at the bottom, then the gauge removal itself, there's only a couple of little finicky sort of bits and pieces that then still need to be removed. One of which is the oil pressure and temperature, coolant temperature gauges, which unfortunately that gauge is not electronic, so you kind of have to fish you have to disconnect the capillary tube. Be aware that oil can actually pour out of that when you disconnect the capillary tube for the oil. Unfortunately, my capillary tube actually got broken in the process of removing the engine, so I'm going to have to run a new one or maybe try and repair that. We'll figure that out at a later stage anyway. The other thing then as well is the little knob for resetting the trip counter on the speedometer goes down to a bracket down below, and that also needs to be disconnected. It's just a knurled nut which you can grab hold of with pliers and just twist off. And yeah, the choke cable as well then will also need to be removed, so we can do that as well. Okay, so looking at the state of play behind the dashboard, it's actually not looking that bad, despite what you might think. You can see that I have everything labelled. It's all very dusty, but to be honest with you, I mean, I haven't found any broken wires or anything that would cause me any kind of concern. Now, the only thing that is going to give me a bit of a headache is the fact that I was hoping I'd have been able to leave the likes of the fuse panel and any of the relays or connectors or anything like that under the engine bay intact and in place. But I won't be able to do that, and the simple reason is because if you look here, you'll see that there's only a small amount of space to get all the wiring through the bulkhead and get it all out of the car. So either I take all the last of the switches and stuff like that off the stuff in behind the dashboard, or I take the stuff off the wiring harness under the engine bay. To be honest with you, I think under the engine bay is the lesser of two evils. There you are, sort that mess out. Shouldn't be too bad really, in fairness. I think it's actually not in bad condition, to tell you the truth. It's in much better condition than the harness I took out of my Beetle. People break out into a cold sweat anytime the word wiring is even mentioned, to tell you the truth, when it comes to classic cars, or well, especially modern cars actually. But there really is no need. It's not that bad, in fairness, especially if you get proper wiring diagrams. If you can print them in colour on A3 and just work through the harness bit by bit, you'll make it easy for yourself. I mean, I'll just show you here now how this harness is actually looking, and we'll just kind of break it down a little bit. Starting at the front right of the car, there's lights and indicators and horn. You work over to here, lights and indicators and horn. Down here is a connection for start motor, and there is various connections for relays. That's all for the fuses there. I have them all labelled. That is the connection block that goes down to the rear harness for the car, which I've disconnected. Now that's all not labelled because well, I didn't label it at the time when I was disconnecting it, but it's not really going to cause me too much problem. This goes down onto the start motor here, and then this goes onto the gearbox. That is for the lockout for the overdrive, and then I think that's for the reverse light switch. I'm not 100% sure on that. And then you come up here and you have the grommet, and that denotes the change from the outside of the car to the inside. You have your little current limiters. You have a connection block there for the wiper motor, which I need to label actually. That there, I don't even know what the hell that yoke was actually under the instrument console, but then everything else is just labelled, and you can see it's all pretty straightforward. The only thing left to do now is to take out the harness that goes down to the rear of the car. I'm not doing that today though, because I'm kind of still leaving the back of the car as a whole separate job, you know. But for the moment anyway, I'm pretty happy with how much I've gotten done today. The next thing really is to kind of just get stuck into that bodywork and just try and get as much of it done as I can, because it's kind of, I feel like it's starting to get on top of me, you know. I feel like I'm kind of thinking, oh, there's a lot to be done here. And until I start making progress with it, that's not going to change. You just have to kind of keep at it, and, you know, then when you get to the end, stop. You know, it sounds straightforward, but there you go. Anyway, listen, folks, let's leave it there. I think I've done enough, and we'll, as I said, pick this up now at a later stage. I'll bring my welding plant up, and we'll get started cutting out some rusty metal and putting in some fresh metal. Get all of the inner arches painted and protected and all that as well. Then once all that welding is done, and then we can kind of start looking at looking at other areas, because you know the front of the car is kind of then starting to kind of come together, you know, and we can kind of draw that line past the sort of the front doors and then start looking at the back. But yeah, anyway, look, thanks for joining me, and I'll chat to you soon. Please do hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and helps me grow the channel and keep producing the content. So yeah, please do that, and I will chat to you soon. Thanks for watching.